You picked up Dark and Darker and you want to play Ranger, but you don't know where you want to start. Or maybe you've gotten comfortable with PvE and normal dungeons and you want to take it to the next level. Either way, this video is going to give you everything you could possibly want to optimize your Ranger gameplay. The goal is for that next Reddit post about how busted Rangers are and how they should be taken out of the game. I want that Reddit post to be because of you. I'm the Dark Harvester, and in Dark and Darker I main Ranger, and my Ranger's name is Nerf the Longbow. I've been playing since early access, and I'm currently... oh, let's see what rank I am. 29 in Duo High Roller Ranger. This video, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about the Ranger build, skills, mechanics, tips, and tricks for increasing your success in the dungeon. We'll go over looting, PvP, PvE, and AP. What is the Ranger class? This is an important question to understand because if you know what the class is and how it performs, you can understand your strengths and weaknesses, and you can create a viable team comp. Ranger is the strongest and most versatile range class in the game. Ranger deals physical damage with recurve bows, longbows, survival bows, and crossbows. Ranger severely lacks strength in close quarters combat and therefore needs to be protected by stronger melee-based teammates, like a barbarian or a fighter. Ranger needs to maintain distance from the enemy to maximize their bow's effectiveness. Think like an ADC in League of Legends. When you create a Ranger and you go to the class, perk, and skill page, you see all of the character's stats. Notice that a Ranger's base agility and dexterity are high, and the health is low. Ranger's a mobile class, not equipped for taking damage, and not meant to be a frontline attacker. So you notice the Agi's 21 and the dexterity is 18, right? The difference is agility is move speed, and it slightly increases the rate at which you shoot your bow, and dexterity is primarily for how quickly you shoot your bow, and then it slightly increases your regular interaction speed. Interaction speed just being how quickly you interact with like doors, props, and chests and stuff. So what does that tell us? It tells us that your move speed is high, you shoot quickly, and you have low health, meaning you probably shouldn't be in the front line, right? Obviously, you have a bow. Bow means distance equals power, okay? Let's talk about the perks. If your class choice is the meat and potatoes of how you're going to play the game, perks that you choose are the sides that go with your entree. Some perks are more influential in a specific playstyle than others. Like, for instance, a fighter who runs Slayer, dual wield, and combo attack, they're not going to be in all plate armor with a shield. So those perks dictate the fighter's playstyle. Other perks more so highlight and elevate subtle but important characteristics that will give you the house edge in a fight, like a rogue running the jokester perk that gives them slightly better stats. Let's look at the Ranger perks. So I'm gonna go ahead and take these perks off, and we'll just go one by one. The first perk we have is Chase. This makes recent enemy footsteps appear red. Interesting. By taking this perk, you do lose a small amount of DPS to gain information, but knowledge itself is power. Defensively, it's your biggest anti-rogue perk due to seeing the footsteps of invisible players. Also, red footsteps lighting up in the darkness is an easy player identifier.
Yep.
And he sounded like he's...
Hold up, one more bandy.
Yeah, rogue. Did I just kill him? Offensively, it allows you to chase down players and teams without having to second guess if they ran, hit, or died. I run it with every single Ranger build that I make because it suits my playstyle. I'm a pretty aggressive player. If you're a player who prefers to slowly clear and maintain an open area, you might forego this perk and instead take a DPS perk. I do recommend always running Chase, specifically because of rogue landmines, right? That's your largest counter. To put it into perspective, so if I go to my main Ranger and I pull up stats for Ruins High Roller, I have over 200 games played, 155 extractions. So my deaths is 65 deaths. Realistically, at least 50 of these, maybe even 55, are rogue landmines. It's the hardest counter to Ranger, which means you want to run everything you can to defensively play against that. Next up, we got Crippling Shot. This slows when shooting enemy legs. The only time you're really going to aim for legs is with a fighter or a cleric who's approaching you with a shield and no other part of their body is exposed. Shooting at enemy legs is not going to be your priority. You want to strive for headshots, but you settle for center mass, right? And so ultimately, you want to get a better angle for your team, run away, or switch to melee if they're using that shield. If they're disengaging, then you won't have to worry about shooting them in the legs. You're going to aim for center mass. It's too niche. I don't recommend it. I do see some people running it with like a survival bow, but I don't think it's optimal. So I would skip Crippling Shot. Crossbow Mastery. The crossbow is very strong, but if you're hitting your shots with the longbow or even the recurve, you're going to be outperforming the crossbow in terms of DPS. It is viable if you don't want to play with a melee weapon, and that just means that you're going to run a bow as a primary and crossbow as secondary. You would initiate with the crossbow, hopefully a headshot, and then you switch to your primary bow to finish the fight. The windlass crossbow, that is an even larger, more powerful crossbow, but it requires a stationary reload, which just means that you can't move while you're reloading. And for that reason, the windlass is not viable. I don't ever run the crossbow as a ranger. I see it sometimes, but I usually forego this perk. Enhanced Hearing. This perk allows you to hear players from further away. This is really only useful when ratting for loot or AP. I don't recommend for kitted runs, but if you're running a naked ranger class, like if you don't have any money and you can't kit up, then you're already so weak, it doesn't really matter if, for instance, 5% physical damage bonus, right? This 5% is mandatory almost always, but if you're a naked ranger, you're already so incredibly weak that you could forego this perk and instead run Enhanced Hearing to avoid team fights. It's the only time I would ever recommend using it. Kinesthesia. It increases move speed while your bow is drawn. This is really only decent in ranged fights. You should not maintain a knocked arrow for a long time while moving. It leaves you susceptible to headshots and ambushes. You need to get better angles and hit your shots. I don't recommend running this. Nimble Hands. Nimble Hands is good. It increases draw speed, which means quicker shooting. Quicker shooting ultimately is DPS. This is a good perk. Quick Reload. It's exactly what it sounds like. You reload quicker, and ultimately that's going to be more damage per second, right? Because if you can get 10 shots off in 5 seconds because of your quick reload versus 10 shots off in 7 seconds, then you're going to be outperforming the enemy ranged character who's not reloading as quickly. Ranged Weapons Master. This is just a 5% physical damage bonus. It's just all it is damage increase. It's mandatory. You need to run Ranged Weapons Mastery. Absolutely. Sharpshooter is 15% headshot power. This is also mandatory. Now, some people think, well, I'm not good at hitting headshots, so I shouldn't run 15% headshot power. No, you always run Sharpshooter, and the reason is when you're fighting PvP, maybe you're not hitting your headshots, and that's okay. You just need to practice. Eventually you'll get there. But when you're fighting the mobs, you're fighting PvE, skeletons, goblins, etc., it's very easy to hit them in the head. Every single shot that you make on a mob should be a headshot, and therefore it's going to be dealing extra damage with this perk. Absolutely mandatory. Next up, Spear Proficiency. This allows you to use spears, and you gain physical power because of it. So I ran this for months, and it's very strong PvE. It's very strong PvP. You hit like a tank. But if you're attacking with a spear, then you're not utilizing all of your other perks or your primary weapon. And lastly is Trap Mastery. This allows you to install traps faster. Traps are one of the best items in the game. However, this perk is completely useless. You don't play a ranger to install traps quickly. If you're using traps, you're going to have plenty of time to do so. If you don't have plenty of time to install a trap, then you should not be setting it in the first place. Okay? All right, now we're going to talk about our skills. The infamous Field Ration. Heal 25 health with each use. There's 3 uses. This is the best starting skill for a beginner ranger due to sustainability. It's great against ranger fights due to the healing, right? So you're basically in ranged fights, whether it's a ranger or a fighter with a bow or a wizard who's trying to poke via range, you can heal the poke. So it's pretty good in that regard. It's not the best for kitted runs unless you're playing out of the circle I used to think that field ration was good anti-landmine, but really it's not. If a rogue's on top of you, you just don't have time to heal. I mean, I've ran many builds trying to use field ration over DPS perks like multi-shot and quick shot, and it's just, I don't like it. I like being a damage machine, and you don't ever have to worry about taking damage from any PvE at all if you're playing Ranger. It's strictly players, so I don't run field ration, but it's the biggest, one of the biggest complaints that I see on the subreddit is how broken field ration is because Rangers get to heal. You know, it doesn't provide firepower, and ultimately shotgun and triple shot are just better. So next up is forceful shot. This, when you hit them, you knock targets back. Okay, it's pretty much useless. There's really nothing more to say about this. It's very bad. You'll never ever use it until they somehow buff it. Next up is going to be multi-shot. This is referred to as a shotgun. So yeah, it's extremely useful in close quarters combat. It allows you to defend against ambush rogues, which are your biggest counters. It kills PvE quickly. For instance, wolves, right? Wolves are running at you, and one shotgun kills them. It's good for sub-bosses like the Skelly Champ and the Wraith, as well as DPSing down the bosses in Infernal Hell, right? So the DPS is also amplified by the fact that you do not need arrows ready to shoot, meaning if you start with 6 arrows and you use the shotgun, you only have 1 left because it fires 5. That makes sense. It's basic math. But if you use 5 of your starting arrows and you only have 1 left until you reload, you can still shotgun. If you have 0 arrows left and you have to reload, as long as you have arrows that you can reload with, you can still shotgun. So if you start with 6 arrows, you can shoot all of them at the enemy, and then when they run at you, you can still shotgun them, hitting them with 5 arrows. It's very good DPS, okay? Next up is penetrating shot. Penetrating shot gives you headshot pin and armor pin for 8 seconds. It's pretty much just anti-plate fighter and plate cleric. It does massive headshot damage. I don't run it. Fighters are a problem, but penetrating shot just, it doesn't do a whole lot against players that aren't running a lot of armor, like wizards, rogues, bards, etc. So I haven't been running penetrating shot very much. Quick shot. So quick shot lets you shoot multiple shots quickly back to back. The amount depends on the bow. I use quick shot with the longbow over quick fire or pen shot because it allows for insta kills from unsuspecting players, right? Hit him. Killed him. Killed rogue. Wizards meditating, players resting, players looting, warlocks playing out of the circle, players camping static portals, etc. I have a million clips of the quick shot longbow getting insta kills with the 2 shots that you get. Some people don't run it because they think that it's much better on the recurve, which it is better on the recurve. The recurve bow allows for 3 shots, whereas the longbow only allows for 2, but those 2 shots are just so much damage on unsuspecting players. Lastly, we got true shot, and this just makes the projectile speed increase. It's a slight damage buff. It's really only useful with a crossbow. Pen shot, true shot, windless crossbow is like it's a combination that allows to play off of each other, right? So like crossbow mastery gives 5% physical damage bonus, and then pin shot is 50% headshot pin and 25% armor pin. Crossbows already come with armor pin, and then you run that with true shot and you get another 5%, and it, you know, it's very, very strong. But I don't run the windlass, I don't run the crossbow, so I don't play that method. So my recommendation is running chase, range weapon mastery, sharpshooter. And then if you like the spear, run spear proficiency. But if you don't want to use the spear, run nimble hands. For the skills, I say always take multi-shot no matter what. And then if you're newer, take field ration so that you can heal. And if you're not worried about getting hit by any PvE, take quick shot. What is a ranger's role in the fight? So this game's not like Gears of War or Valorant where you can easily clutch a 1v3 in a matter of seconds. Your role as a ranger is to give your team the numbers advantage as quickly as possible. You let your front line and your support zone and stall while you DPS the enemy team down. You have 3 priorities in a team fight. One is the enemy DPS. They're going to have the least amount of health and they're going to hit the hardest. That's going to be the enemy ranger, the enemy rogue, or the enemy wizard. You take out the enemy DPS and their team crumbles. Enemies that are affected by mobility buffs is going to be your priority number 2. This is because they're easier to shoot, and that allows for maximum damage output, as opposed to, say, highly mobile enemies that are likely to dodge your shots. Some examples of this prioritization are wizards casting magic missiles, enemies in a trap, enemies that have been slowed by Achilles, Death Beetle, Goblin Shaman, Wizard Slow. Anything that slows them, they're going to be in this category. A cleric charging up a heal, a fighter attempting to riposte. All of these make enemies slower, and when enemies are slower, you want to be hitting them. Priority number 3, the enemy that's about to kill your ally. Preservation of your teammate's life is even more important than getting kills, because if you win a team fight but you lose your allies, that's potentially thousands of gold gone. Now you can't fight again that game because you'll be outnumbered. Whereas if you protect your teammate from dying, maybe you don't get the kill and maybe the enemy gets away, but you have the ability to engage again at a later time and you still have your teammates. Or you can extract and reset and you guys still have all your gear and your loot. So, if you can stop the enemy ranger from shooting your teammate who's stuck in a ranger trap, if you shoot the enemy barb who just hit his Achilles on the teammate and rage, preventing him from diving onto your front line, if you can scare the fighter who just sprinted and used second wind from pushing, you can give your team time to regain composure, heal, and move to a more advantageous position and ultimately be ready to win the engagement. Let's talk about some ranger builds. Okay, your build's going to change depending on the team size and comp. The more players on your team, the more you can spec into additional damage. If you're playing solo or duo, you need to be able to cover your weaknesses more because you have less support. This means that you're going to sacrifice stats such as dex for health. If you build pure DPS, you're foregoing perks like chase, and you're also not utilizing gear that leaves you tanky enough to endure the first 2 hits from a landmine rogue. You need to have enough time to shotgun the rogues that jump on you and not die to the poison or rupture damage. All right, let's talk about the gear that you want to have as a ranger. So your weapon, you're either going to use Longbow or Recurve. I always suggest Longbow. Longbow is also in a position of dominance right now. It's really good and it's fairly strong. But even when Longbow was nerfed to the ground, I still ran it. I always run Longbow. I like how it plays. I mean, ultimately, you're going to choose between Longbow and Recurve, and there's a couple of differences. I'll throw the differences up here. There are a few key differences between the Longbow and the Recurve. The Longbow has higher damage, which ultimately means you have a stronger shotgun. It has faster projectile speed and overall higher effective range. The Longbow is better from a longer distance. I also think the Longbow is better in medium distance engagements. The Recurve bow gives you more arrows to shoot before you have to reload. The Recurve bow lets you shoot 8 versus the Longbow, which only lets you shoot 6. The Recurve bow shoots quicker because of the draw speed, and the quick fire gives you 3 shots with the Recurve versus the Longbow, which only gives you 2 shots with the quick fire. The Recurve is definitely better close range, specifically because you're shooting quicker and the triple shot is lethal up close. You're going to run primary weapon with weapon damage, armor pen, and then another DPS stat, whether it's a dexterity or physical power or physical damage bonus. Your hood, I like forest hood or leather cap. I'm using this ranger hood because it's giving me strength and health, so it's a little bit of damage and some extra health, but the forest hood and leather cap give you vigor, and I like having the vigor for the rogue landmine. My spear, I'm just running a purple spear for the base weapon damage. If you do run a spear that you like, you're going to want some armor pen and some weapon damage on it. Pretty much the same stats that you would have for your primary weapon. Your chest piece is going to be I like the padded tunic for damage and health. This gives you more armor, more health, and more burst damage than, say, like a Wanderer attire, even though Wanderer attire is more consistent DPS for longer engagements because of the dexterity increase. Like, for instance, if you're bossing, then you might want the Wanderer attire, but it leaves you more susceptible for your biggest counter, again, which is the landmine. So I like the padded tunic. It just makes you more of a defensive threat for a rogue to jump right on top of you. Your leggings, I like heavy leather leggings and cloth pants. Heavy leather is preferable. Loose trousers, they just provide less protection than even cloth pants, and I don't run them because I don't need any more agility. I don't need to run any faster than I already do. That's not my play style. I prefer more of a ballista play style, which is heavy damage and minimal shots. Now, I realize I don't run a crossbow or a windlass, which truly is that play style, but the longbow is the perfect compromise in the middle. Next up, we got our boots. I like heavy boots, but adventure boots and rugged boots are also good too because of their health. Cloak, you want a tattered cloak, a mercurial cloak, or a vigilant cloak. The tattered obviously being strength, which I like. Mercurial and vigilant are also going to be DPS. Primary stats for pendants and for your rings. So those are going to be strength with weapon damage, additional damage, and physical damage bonus. So an ox pendant is going to give you your strength, and then rings of courage are going to give you your strength. If you can have secondary rolls that give you additional damage, like this true damage or this physical damage bonus, then it's only going to make you more of a threat. So this is what a typical build looks like when I go into a dungeon and do a run. This is everything that I need. At the end of a run, you want to throw away your arrows for more loot. You want to throw away your pots and your bandages for more loot. I don't bring a campfire anymore. I used to bring a campfire right here in this slot, but we just weren't using it, myself and my teammate, so I don't bring it anymore. Let's talk about scouting. Scouting is very important, specifically in high roller, because you want to know what builds people are running, what gear they have, who's kitted, who's not. It lets you figure out what type of play style people have. If the barbarian is running 50 throwing axes, if the warlock is running blow of corruption, you know, so phantomized blow of corruption. You can see this guy's just going for one-shot kills. If the ranger, right, how kitted is the ranger? Can you handle him in a 1v1? Is he running field rations, which allows him to heal your poke if you do get in an engagement, which every bad kid ranger does run field rations, so you should just predict that they are doing that. But scouting, nonetheless, is extremely important. When do you scout versus when do you not scout? Every single high roller game, you need to scout, with the exception of if you're running solos and you have a super large kit that you don't want people to see, or you're running a key or a gem. If you're running with a team, you give your teammate all of the good stuff that you don't want people to see, like a gold cape, like a key, like a gem, and then you go scout. So next rule that we're going to learn is that you don't trust anyone. Okay? Don't trust anyone in this game. I don't care what they say. I don't care what they tell you in VoIP. Do not trust them. Okay, so while you're fighting PvE in this game, there are a few techniques that allow you to clear effectively and efficiently. So I'm going to show you that. So when you're in an open space like this, you can pretty much go anywhere to fight, right? But let's say that you were in close quarters and you didn't have all this space. You can bait out an attack, move in, shoot, bait out the next attack, pull back, come back in, and the skeleton didn't even move. So let's try that again. So we're gonna move into the skeleton. We're gonna bait out an attack. We're gonna pull back. We're gonna shoot its head. We're gonna bait out an attack. We're gonna pull back, and we're gonna shoot its head. And we're gonna do that until it dies. Notice how it's not moving at all? This is an effective way to deal with enemies in close quarters combat. All right. So skeleton archers. Pretty easy. All you have to do is move left and right from their shots and hit them in the head. You can, it doesn't matter how slowly you are, as long as you move left or right, you will dodge the skeleton shots, okay? This guide is not meant to explain how to fight every single enemy, but rather how to fight ranged enemies versus how to fight melee enemies. Some enemies that you fight are not going to be as easy to kill, like a cockatrice, like a wraith, like a skeleton champion. And that's when you need to use verticality. Use walls, use crates, use light sources. Throw your torches so that you can see the enemies. Understand your enemy's range. How far back do you have to move before you can come back in and have them hit you? It's all, a lot of it is just practice, right? The next thing I want to talk about is traps.
He hit a trap.
Oh my god, he hit a trap. Hit, oh, go in. Right, so traps are a key component of a ranger's kit. A well-placed trap can turn a fight from a mortifying defeat to an easy 1v3. There's a few great trapping locations on each map. You can check these out in another video that I might make one day, but in essence, traps should be used at choke points and placed to provide security. If you place a trap in each doorway that you just came from, you don't need to worry about an enemy flanking without some sort of sound cue. This allows for a more attentive advance. Just remember that traps are as dangerous as they are powerful. You along with your allies can step in one of your own traps, which can easily lose you the fight. Oh, you're bad.
Trapped. You help me?
I got you.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
In my experience, the most effective traps are placed in the corpses of players and mobs. Make sure to give yourself space between a doorway and a trap. This provides two advantages. First, the enemy steps in your trap and is too close to the door, they can shut it and use it as cover, and you won't be able to shoot them while they're immobile. Secondly, traps that have space between them and a door can secondarily be used as bait from east to west directions. So let me just show you a diagram real quick. We're going to offset it from the doorway a couple feet, and we're going to utilize concealment, whether it's a body that's laying over the trap, or it's brush like grass, or it's a player, maybe it's a corpse, whatever. We're going to try and utilize some concealment so that it's not seen. Now, this offers alternate uses. The reason I say that is because if an enemy pushes from this direction, from the doorway, they can hit the trap, which is obvious, right? That's its intended primary use. However, if your positioning, let's say we're playing from the eastmost direction. This is really like southeast from the doorway. This allows you to utilize that trap to zone not only the door, but also the west area. So if you have a team that's approaching from north, which is the doorway, and another team that's approaching from the west, you can utilize this trap so that when the team pushes you, the west team can get trapped by it. Or let's say it's a duo or a trios and one's trying to flank. It's giving you the opportunity to not only have the door trapped, but to also have your west flank more secured, okay? And again, that's utilizing this concealment from the bodies or the brush or the darkness. Shadow is also concealment, right? You don't want them to be able to see it very easily. That's why they're gonna be running around with torches, lanterns, etc. Let's say you're playing in this hallway and you have your trap in the middle of the hallway, very easy to see with no concealment. But what if there's some darkness right here, okay? Let's say that all of this space, this black line, is considered shadow and it's darkness. So what we're gonna do is we're going to play a little mind game, okay? We're going to put a trap right here. And then we're also going to put a second trap right here. And we're going to play from this position right here. And then the enemy player that's approaching, they're going to push, they're going to see the trap, and they're either going to jump over it or they're going to go around it and they're going to hit our other trap, okay? So it's just small stuff like this. Utilize your concealment for traps. Don't put in the most obvious location. Try and understand a secondary use for them, and you'll get a lot of kills with traps, and a lot of people are going to complain. I mean, let's be honest, it feels horrible to hit a trap. All right, now we're going to talk about matchups. So I have a little tier list maker here, and I'm not going to go in depth as to solos versus duos with trios because the comp and the matchups, they change a little bit, but just this is a general tier list for ranger matchups. Okay, so we're just going to go down this list, and S we're going to say is most difficult to fight, and then down here we're just going to put easiest to fight. So just starting from left to right, we're going to start with Barbarian. Barbarian's probably the second easiest class to fight. They're all melee. The only thing you have to do is worry about an Achilles slow. Remember that the Barb is going to be running Rage, which means he's going to have a movement speed increase. So just don't let him get too close. When he gets to that mid to close range, he's going to hit that Rage, and then he'll be able to get on top of you. Just maintain distance, and the Barb player is not going to be a problem at all, and do not get hit by the Achilles Francisca axe. Next up is Bard. We're going to put Bard in middle tier. A Bard with a movement speed buff and a Rapier can cause you problems. The other reason that they're up here is because they can use the crossbow, and the crossbow gives them the ability to fight you at range, right? It doesn't matter what class hits you with a crossbow. If you get hit in the head with a crossbow, it's going to hurt. Next up, we got Cleric. Cleric is actually the easiest class to fight. The only Cleric that you have to somewhat worry about is Plate with a shield and a couple of ranged spells, because then they have the ability to attack you when you have the high ground, like if you're on a wall or a crate or something. But Clerics are very easy to kite. If they're running Smite, the second that they proc their Smite on their weapon, all you do is press X, you sheath your weapon, and you run the other direction. You continue to shoot them. If they have a shield, you hit them in the legs. They're very slow. They're not going to be able to catch you. Cleric is extremely easy to fight. Next up, we got Fighter with bow and Fighter without bow. So the fighters are going to be your most difficult. They're your biggest defensive counter. When I say that is they're going to have all of the physical damage reduction. They're going to have the plate. They're going to have the shields. And when they're running a bow, a crossbow, or a longbow, they're able to challenge you at range. So it becomes a problem. A ranger, we're going to put an A because it's just a skill match at that point, but rangers are very deadly, and if they get the drop on you without you knowing, it's a free headshot, and if they get the double shot off, then you're just dead. So you need to watch out for rangers. Typically a ranger that has the field rations has a slight advantage because of their ability to sustain more poke than the ranger who doesn't have the field rations. Your biggest counter is going to be a rogue, and that is specifically the landmine rogue. This is the largest. I say rogue is the largest offensive counter, and fighter is the largest defensive counter, because rogues, if you see them from far away, they're never going to attempt to attack you. They're not going to run up on you. They're going to utilize stealth and offensively take you down without you knowing. The fighter, however, is, if from a distance, if you start pelting a fighter, they can easily just make an advance towards you with their shield, and they're able to eat more damage than anyone else in the game. Warlock, we're going to put down at C. Warlock's pretty bad. The only Warlock you have to worry about is a Phantomized Blow of Corruption Warlock who's not running any spells, and that's because they can approach you with zero challenge at all, and then when they get up on you, they Blade of Corruption proc, and that can one-shot you. Then we have Wizard. Now, real quick, back to Warlock. If they're using spells against you, it's just the easiest fight in the world. They have a movement speed debuff when they're using that spell. They're slower. You get instant headshots almost every single time. It's super simple. Wizard is a little bit more powerful than the Warlock, a little bit scarier, but as long as you utilize your distance, they don't have any spells that can handle you. They can try and fireball you unless they have verticality, where the fireball is able to hit the ground next to you. It's not dealing any damage. You just have to watch out for when a wizard haste invises himself, because the zap is a problem. You will get two-shot by zap from a decently kitted wizard. So that's going to be the matchup tier list. Really, out of all of my deaths as a ranger, 90% of them to 95% of them are from a rogue, and then the next highest percentage is from either a fighter or another ranger. So that's those are the classes that you want to deal with. So let's take a second to talk about team composition. The better your team composition, the more options you're going to have during your dungeon run, which increases your opportunity for looting, fighting, and extracting. You're going to want a front line, preferably a fighter or a barbarian, and then you can either have a support like a cleric or bard to heal or buff your front line while you DPS from the rear as a ranger, or if your team has a wizard. That's not to say you can't have an all-ranger team for death trap rooms and bossing, or 3 ambush rogues to assassinate the backline instantly, or any version in between, but the tanky frontline support DPS comp is going to give you the most options for successfully extracting the dungeon, and that's just my experience. I think the well-rounded comps are better than the comps that push one primary agenda. So let's talk about the maps now. You got Ruins, Crypts, and Goblin Caves. Ruins is the Ranger's Paradise. The open fields are your safe haven, but it's also a rogue's favorite map because of their double jump and their ability to Batman people. So that's going to be the class you fear the most. Obviously, you want to utilize the open fields to your advantage. Stick to the outside walls. Place traps at choke points for easy headshots. Crypts is the weakest map for a Ranger due to the tight hallways, small spaces, and the lack of verticality. However, traps are significantly stronger on this map due to the tight spaces, so use that to your advantage, okay? Crypts also provides the most AP when you go to hell. Now, that being said, Crypts also costs the most, so you need to take that into consideration when you're going into High Roller. Goblin Caves, it's more open than Crypts, but less so than Ruins. You really need to utilize the elevation that the caves provide. As a ranger, stay as high as you can and turn off the torches to avoid silhouetting yourself. You really want to know your maps, and you want to know where you're at and where you need to go, where the PvP spots are, the loot, the enemies. And I have the Ruins map up here. I'm just going to kind of show you what a run looks like. What are the modules that you want to utilize? So a couple of modules that you want to know, okay? Graveyard and Well are super heavy AP. You have the Royal you have the Royal Coffin. You have all of the gravestones, which are good loot. In Bandit Forest, you have gold that you can mine for right here. In Well, you have a static portal, and you also have a lot of crates. Crates provide amazing AP. Watering Hole, you have gold. In Forest B, you have a static portal to escape. At Castle Armory, there's a Lion's Head. In the square, there's a Lion's Head, and there's a static blue. In the Outer Cemetery, there's a Royal Coffin. In Stables, there's wolf pelts that you want. In the Keep, there is a Skelly Champ, which has the ability to drop a key that you want to get. Wolf Den has wolf pelts. Bandit Camp has a lot of AP in the center here. There's a Lion's Head chest, and there's a lot of crates right in here. I don't like to play square because it's too PvP central, and there's not enough reward in square. There is some gold though if you want to go gold mining. And Tower Bridge has some good crates right here. There's like a crate here, and like 3 crates right here. Super good to get. If I picked 6 squares to play around, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, this is where your big AP is going to come from. And then also, obviously, you want to know the Rusty Key Room is right here. So that's going to be contended in the higher elo games, and that's where the biggest amount of AP is. All right, lastly, I want to go over some tips and tricks that help out not just Ranger players, but everyone. So number 1 is going to be warm up. Warming up is extremely important. You want to go ahead and play, I say play 3 normal games to warm up, and you just want to rush PvP so that you can warm up your accuracy. If you absolutely mop the lobby all 3 times, you're ready for your high roller runs. Use the normal runs to acquire some easy gold too. Ranger's nothing if you can't hit your shots, so if you don't get at least 3 kills each game, just play another one. Number 2 is going to be Scout. Scouting is super important in high roller games. Scouting allows you to see what the enemy teams are running, what the power level of the lobby is, who you need to look out for. If there's another ranger who's super kitted and can one-shot you, that's going to make you loot differently than if there wasn't. Why? Because looting requires you to stand still, and I have killed countless people in the open fields of ruins because they took too long to loot and I got free headshots on them. It allows you to potentially see people that are running keys, that are running golden capes, golden kits for that matter. Number 3, play with the map of the current dungeon that you're in on another monitor or on your phone. So we're going to call that a mini map. And that's because you want to know where you're at all times and where you can res your teammates and where you can heal. Number 4, VoIP. We're going to call this Discord over VoIP. So VoIP is proximity chat, right? So if you have someone on your team that's a greedy little loot goblin, they're not going to be able to hear you when you're telling them that, hey, the rogue's on top of me, or hey, I'm fighting in another room. I've only died like one time because of VoIP problems, because once I died, I just vowed to never ever use VoIP for teammates ever again. So I don't do that. If I play with Randys that I don't know, I make sure that we're in a Discord together so that I don't have to utilize the VoIP. And that being said, you know, this isn't lethal company. Don't allow yourself to be isolated from your teammates. So number 5, I'm going to put heal appropriately. And what I mean by that is you want to heal before, during, and after a fight. So before you run in, you're going to want to pop a red pot. And even a blue pot if you think it's going to be an engagement that you're going to take damage. But you want to use bandages during the fight while you're not DPSing. You want to rotate your players, your teammates, who fights and who heals, and be sure to begin healing before you loot after you win your fight. I can't tell you how many times I have gotten kills because I'm running up and I'm third-partying players who are now looting because they didn't heal. I've also died like that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, bullet crushing that.
I thought he was a wizard. I mean, no! Number 6. This is drop inventory for AP. Drop for AP. So this includes your arrows. This includes your bandages, your pots. This includes you dropping lower quality gear for higher quality gear. Dropping your boots for treasure, because treasure is gonna give you more AP. So move your pots around, put them on the quick slots, drop all the stuff that you don't need, and pick up those trinkets. Number 7, crouch while looting. So this doesn't mean to stay in a crouch position, but what I mean is occasionally crouch up and down while you're looting, whether you're in a body or a treasure chest, so that you can avoid just getting one tap headshot. Right? This is the easiest way for a ranger to get a kill. And I've done it 100 times. I have plenty of videos on it. If you want to see them, check out my YouTube shorts. Number 8, comfy death. So get comfortable losing your kit. You're going to die. It's dark and darker, especially as a ranger, because everyone hates you and you're going to get suied into by rogues and wizards. You're going to lose gear fear much quicker if you go into lobbies kitted. Instead of saving your good gear for the end of a wipe and then being so scared that you're going to whiff and you instantly die. I don't store more than 3 kits at a time. 1 kit is Abyss for kitted key runs. 1 kit is my backup, and the 3rd kit is the one that I utilize while I'm actually going through and doing runs. Those are pretty much my little tips and tricks. There's only 8 of them. It's not a whole lot, but I think if you do all of these, then it'll improve your gameplay and you'll see yourself steadily rise in the leaderboards. And if you want to see some gameplay, check out my other YouTube videos. Add anything that I didn't cover, put it in the comments below. And there are a few videos I plan to make in the future, such as bossing as a ranger, cheese spots, trap locations, etc. So those are going to be the tips and tricks, and that concludes this ranger guide. I know it was a lot of information, So let me go ahead and leave you guys with a montage of why Ranger is the best class in Dark and Darker. Thanks again.
But
Running.
shit, it was
On
99
me.
cents. I get confident watching it. About to go and get some compliments. Passing up on those moccasins. Someone else is gonna nice. Me and grudgy fucking man. I'm stunting and flossing and saving my money. And I'm hella happy.
On me.
I'ma take your grandpa style. I'ma take your grandpa style. No, for real. Ask your grandpa. Can I have his hand me down? Velour jumpsuit and some house slippers. Dookie brown leather jacket that I found. Dig it. Should've had a broken keyboard. I bought a broken keyboard. I bought a seat blanket. Then I bought a kneeboard. Hello, my ace man, my mellow. John Wayne ain't got nothing on my fringe game. Hell no. I can take some pro wings, make them cool, sell those. Sneakerheads to be like,
he got the Velcro. I'm gonna pop some tags. Only got $20 in my pocket. I'm hunting, looking for a come up. This is fucking awesome. I'm gonna pop some tags. Only got $20 in my pocket. I'm hunting, looking for a come up. This is fucking awesome.
what she know about rocking the wolf on your noggin? She knowin' about wearing a fur fox skin. I'm digging, I'm searching right through that luggage.
Hit the wizard.
One
Wizard's
man's
dead.
trash, that's another man's come up. Like your granddad, or donating that flat button up shirt. Cause right now I'm up in her skirt. I'm at the Goodwill, you can find me in the. I'm not stuck on searching in the section. Your grandma, your auntie, your mama, your mammy. I'll take those flannel zebra jammies secondhand and rock that motherfucker. The built-in onesie with the socks on that motherfucker. I hit the party and they stop in that motherfucker. They be like, oh, that Gucci, that's hella tight. I'm like, yo, that's $50 for a t-shirt. Limited edition, let's do some simple edition. $50 for a t-shirt, that's just some ignorant bitch. I call that getting swindled and pimped. I call that getting tricked by business. That shirt hella dope. And having the same one as 6 other people in this club is a hella don't eat gang. Come take a look through my telescope. Tryna get girls from a brand, man, you hella won't.
You're chilling.
Then you hella won't.
See ya. Nice.
I'm gonna pop some tags.
Good. Take your time.
$20 in my pocket. I'm hunting, looking for a come up. This is fucking awesome. I'll wear your granddad's clothes. I look incredible. I'm in this big ass coat from that thrift shop down the road. I'll wear your granddad's clothes. I look incredible. I'm in this big ass coat from that thrift shop down the road.
He just got hit by a.
Only got $20 in my pocket. I'm looking for a come up. This is fucking awesome.
Okay, that was funny as fuck.